Alright you guys, it's about time to make my daughter's favorite food that I make, which is mac and cheese. This is your chance to make something from scratch that is not very hard. So this is the time where you're going to start ditching the blue box and you're going to follow my step-by-step program. I feel like a guru of fitness or something. But we're going to make this amazing mac and cheese that's easy to make, and you can spruce it up and fancy it up if you want to. It makes a great side dish or a great main meal. So come and check it out. Welcome! Today's show, it's all about mac and cheese, and you might wonder, why am I making mac and cheese? And the reason has 4 letters, and her name is Lima. She's 4 years old, she's my daughter, and for the last 2.5 years, every single time I ask, what do you want for breakfast? What do you want for lunch? What do you want for dinner? The answer is normally mac and cheese, and every once in a while, clam chowder. Go figure. Anyways, I am very surprised of how easy this is to make from scratch, and I want you guys to learn how to do it. So every once in a while, instead of making it from the box, we can give this a chance. Mac and cheese is awesome as a side dish, but it could also be a main course. We can add things like blackened chicken, roasted tomatoes, asparagus, spinach, fontina cheese, I don't know, shrimp. I've made all sorts of mac and cheese. In fact, at the restaurant for Thanksgiving, one of the big sides that we sell is a blue cheese mac with a maple scented bacon, which is awesome. So I'm going to show you how to make it. It starts with something called the roux, which is a French term or word, and it's a thickening agent. It's equal parts of fat and in this case, we're using butter for the fat and flour. So if you use half a cup of flour, we're going to use half a cup of butter. And we're going to cook it. We're not going to overcook it because that will change the color of our sauce, and that could be used in other applications, like when you make gumbo perhaps. So we're going to make our roux, and then we're going to add our liquid. In this case, in the case of a mac and cheese, it's milk. So this is what it's known as a bechamel, which is a mother sauce. Roux, then the liquid, and then once that's hot and incorporated, we're going to fold in or sprinkle in our cheese, and then the sauce is pretty much done. So the way I like to eat it is with cheddar. So cheddar cheese, it gives it that color and that familiar flavor. And then here I have jack cheese as well. So we have 2-to-1 parts of cheddar to jack. So there's about a cup of cheddar and half a cup of jack. And the third cheese, which is this is a 3-cheese mac and cheese, is going to be parmesan. So I like grating my parmesan. I definitely don't like buying the green container. I feel like I'm talking about the blue container and the green container. So we're going to shred our parmesan right before we make it, and we're going to need about a half a cup. So parmesan gives it this nutty flavor. By all means, if you don't have parmesan, it's okay. It's still going to be awesome. You can use Swiss cheese if you have some of that, just to give it that nuttiness, or you can just skip it altogether. But whatever cheese you have pretty much makes a great mac and cheese. So I'm going to sort of eyeball what half a cup looks like, and then we're going to add it in there. This might be a little bit more generous than half a cup. And then I want to mix this in together with the other cheeses, because I'm going to reserve a little bit because it's going to go on top of our noodles before we put it in the oven. So basically, traditional mac and cheese is made with something called macaroni pasta. And macaroni pasta, once it's cooked, looks like this. This is a medium-sized macaroni, and I pre-cooked it for us for the show. But takes about 10 minutes. Just follow the instructions in the box. Just try to keep it al dente, because remember, this is going to go in the oven. So anytime you cook pasta, you want to cook it with a lot of water and a good amount of salt. Who was it? Mario Butali says that the water should taste like the seawater, like ocean water, in order to, before you put the pasta in there. And I believe that, because pasta is just flour and water basically, so you want to flavor it, and a good beginning of the flavoring process is going to be salting that water. Also, you want to do it with a lot of water, because the least amount of water you have, in this particular case maybe not as much, but thin noodles tend to just stick together, and then it's kind of a pain to spend your afternoon just getting them apart. So we're going to move our station to the fire part of the station, and I'm going to show you how to make the roux and how to add the cheese. But before we do that, I want to talk about toppings, because I think my favorite part of anything that goes in the oven is the crust that gets formed from it. So sometimes mac and cheese gets breadcrumbs on top. I'm going to do it with potato chips. You can, by all means, make your own potato chips. You're going to need a lot of oil. So if you have one bag of potato chips, like a small kid's bag of potato chips, that should be enough. I did cheat today, and these are store-bought potato chips. That is what it is, and it's easy, and I'm gonna crush them. And in order to crush them, you're gonna get your aggressions out by getting a Ziploc bag. We're gonna put them inside the Ziploc bag. This is probably more than what we need. This is about maybe a cup and a half of them. And then we're gonna seal the bag, get the air out so it makes it easier. And then you can just put them on the counter and put your weight into it. I like leaving them a little bit bigger than normal so it's not gonna look like a powder, but still you wanna crush it a little bit. And the cool thing about store-bought potato chips is that they're already seasoned. They're normally highly salted, so you don't have to do much of anything to it. All we're gonna do is mix it up with a little bit of our leftover cheese to create yet one more amazing layer of flavor in our mac and cheese. So we're gonna take a little break. I'm gonna set up over there. I'm gonna show you guys how this works. It's easy. Please try to stay away from the blue box whenever possible. And I'm gonna show you that it's not hard. All right, here we are about to start making our mac and cheese. I have here a pan that's a little bit thicker and that can go in the oven because ultimately you don't have to, but it really makes sense and it adds another layer of flavor if we put it in the oven, but you don't have to. You can always just plate it from here. Turn our fire on. And then here we're gonna start by making the roux that we talked about, which is equal parts of butter and flour. Right, you're paying attention. All right, cool. Butter in there, and at this point we're going to wait a little bit and allow the butter to melt a little bit, because if we throw the flour, it might land on an area that does not have the butter in it and it's going to start to burn. So to make your life easier, you can move around the butter while it's melting. So you coat the whole bottom of your pan with the butter. This is half a cup of butter because it's going to be half a cup of flour. Remember, it's equal parts of flour and butter in order to make a roux. As our butter melts, we're going to let it melt completely, but we have a little time. So I'll tell you my favorite. I will tell you my favorite mac and cheese is one with crab legs and 5-year-old Gouda. It's awesome. And then we do a little truffle oil on top, and that's really like the ultimate mac and cheese. But it really is just mac and cheese with different toppings. So once you master this, it's endless. You can truly make it for a Super Bowl party. You can make it for a kid's party. You can make it really spicy. You can do some of that like a buffalo chicken mac and cheese, which is great. It has a bunch of options that you can do. And then the next day, if you have leftover mac and cheese, you can roll it into little balls, dust it in breadcrumbs, and deep fry it if you want. Our butter is almost completely melted, so at this point we're going to go ahead and add our flour. Remember, equal parts of flour and butter, so that's half a cup of flour going in there. And at this point, I'm switching from my first love, which is a wooden spoon, into a whisk. And the whisk is going to help me incorporate the butter into the flour, and it's going to start getting thicker right away. We're going to cook the flour in the butter for about 1 minute. And at this point, we're going to start seasoning this with a little bit of salt. We're not going to do a lot of salt because the cheese, the Parmesan cheese especially, has a good amount of salt. But also remember that our butter, the one that we use, is unsalted so that we can control the level of salt that goes in there. We're going to let it cook maybe for another 30 seconds, and then we're going to start adding our liquid, which in this case is going to be 2 cups of milk. If you wanted to make something like a potato soup, you can start it like this. Half potatoes from the day before, or mashed potatoes from the day before, add it to this, and instead of adding milk, you can add a mixture of like chicken stock and milk, and then you're going to have a thick, rich potato soup that just tastes like eating baked potatoes. So at this point, I feel like we've cooked our flour long enough. It's starting to get a little bit of color. We're going to add our milk, and we're going to whisk. And these 2 containers are both milk. I just did not have a cup that can hold 2 cups, but together is 2 cups of milk. We're going gonna do a little adding of flavors. I love the flavor of mustard, and trust me, it's not gonna taste like mustard. It's just gonna give you that what is the word? Maybe like not spicy, but just flavorful, savory add-on to it. So we're gonna add about a teaspoon of mustard in there, and a little bit of paprika, which gives you color and a little bit of flavor as well. Paprika is, it's dried pepper, but it's not the spicy kind. It's kind of like a more mild version of it. So we're gonna add about a teaspoon of it, and we're gonna keep whisking. This will take, when you thicken things with flour, you will know how thick it is once your liquid comes to a boil, which is different if we were doing Asian cooking and you do something else that we call a slurry, which is a mixture of cornstarch and water that you add to a liquid. It will thicken like that. So depending on the thickener that you're using, you'll see the results right away. But with flour, as you can see, because I just moved into this house, and this kitchen and this stove is pretty awesome, and it's already boiling. Trust me, at the rental place, it would have taken forever. That's why we never shop there, so we're happy to be here. It's already boiling, and you can see already how it's starting to thicken up. So I'm going to lower the heat, and at this point, I'm going to add our cheese. But I want to do that with the heat almost turned off. And we're going to drizzle our cheese. Remember, we're going to save some for our topping. So we're going to save about half a cup of the mixture of the cheese. And I'm going back to my wooden spoon. And we're going to melt the cheese. The heat is in low, but the sauce is already very warm. So it should just melt our cheese fine. And then one more thing that I've been telling you about is tasting. So this is a good point. You're going to taste, and we're tasting for salt. We're also looking for consistency, because if it's a little too runny, you can always add water, milk, or something. It's delicious. It just needs a little bit of salt. We're going to add a little bit more salt. We're going to bring it up on the heat, and then we're going to add our macaroni noodles that were already cooked, right? Don't add any raw noodles here. This is the pre-cooked ones that we made earlier. And we're going to mix our cheese and pasta together. You want to make sure that all the noodles are completely coated in the sauce. Some might think that this looks a little bit too thick, and it looks a little bit like it's too much sauce for the pasta. But trust me, the pasta is going to start sort of absorbing a lot of this sauce. I'm going to let it come to temperature again, because we just added the cold pasta in there, and then we can finish in the oven. And I'm going to show you how to put the topping before we do that. So we're going to let it sit there for a second. If you feel that it's a little too thick, which in this case I'm like on the fence, because in all honesty, sometimes things get thicker a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit more liquid to that. And the liquid I'm adding is in the form of milk. So sometimes if you catch yourself and you see something that you can fix, it's a good time to do so. So I am now almost ready to put the topping in there. Yeah, so this is better. We're just going to bring it up in temperature, and then we're going to throw it in the oven. But before we do that, we're going to put our topping, which I have over here. Our potato chip topping, remember? But we're going to wait for this to come to temperature. Once we add the potato chips, we're going to finish it with the cheese, and then we're going to go in the oven. As you can see, we're starting to see it bubbling up, which is exactly what we want. We don't want the oven to work as how we're cooking this. We just want the oven to broil the top. So if you have one of those fancy ovens that has that broil option, please turn it to broil. Keep an eye on it, because those things are fast, so it might just take you 2 or 3 minutes to get a little bit of color in there. So now our pasta is completely boiling. And then we're going to go with our potato chip crust. If you feel it in your hands that's a little bit thick, you can always keep crushing it with your hands. So we're going to come around, put it all over our pasta. And after we're done with that, we are going to go in with the leftover of the cheese. And then we're going to throw it in the oven. This is an awesome dish. If my daughter wasn't in school right now, she would be already here trying to get a bite. So trust me, your kids, your grown-ups, anybody, your loved ones, your not so loved ones, whoever you have around you is going to love this dish. So At this point, I'm gonna take it into the oven, put it on my fancy broil setting, and enjoy shortly after that. Alright, our mac and cheese is ready. I just checked on it. I turned the oven off because that broil thing works really fast. I got my glove on. I'm practicing safe cooking. I'm going to get my mac and cheese out. Oh yeah. Can you guys hear that? That is just awesome. So this is it. This is the mac and cheese that I want you guys to try to make at home. It's delicious, it's creamy, it's nice and crusty. Remember, you don't have to put it in the oven. I just so happen to do so because I had the oven on for something else. But if you just make it from the stovetop and plate it from there, it's going to be as delicious. So you don't have to get intimidated or do that extra step. I just want you to make this at home. Make it, make it, make it. Now we're going to go ahead and plate it. Can you hear that? I'm going to cut through that awesome crust. Make sure that my bite has that in. Oh yeah. Alright, our mac and cheese is awesome. It's ready to be tasted. And I've been sitting here patiently waiting. I didn't taste it yet. And I picked up some notes just from the smells. And one of the secrets that I use, and you'll hear more about this as we develop the show more, is I use smoked paprika. I called for paprika on the recipe, but I switch it for smoked paprika most of the times because it just gives you that extra layer of flavor, right? And I think it's going to work really, really well with this mac and cheese. So let's not wait any longer and let's taste it. As you can see, that awesome topping with the potato chip crust and the cheese did its thing, and it created a crust and an awesome color. The mac and cheese is awesomely... It's not dry, it's still very moist and good. And hot. But so good. It's rich. You don't want a lot of this, and this is not something that you're going to have a full plate of it. It's a great side dish when it's this rich. If you want it lighter, you can do it with chicken stock, with some vegetables in it. But it's truly delicious, and I am happy to tell you that this is my daughter's favorite dish. In my show notes, there's a link, I guess. You click on that link and it will subscribe you to my email list, and doing that will get you the recipes that we do, so you don't have to be taking notes. It'll be easier for you. So there you go, an honest response. Hopefully you click on it, you become a fan, and I am enjoying doing this for you. Thank you, and I'll see you next week for another episode of A Seat at My Table.